This is Lectio Musica. I'm Matthew David Morris. On this podcast, we explore the spiritual practice of writing songs from Scripture, a practice we call Lectio Musica. Each week, we look ahead to the upcoming Sunday lectionary readings and then hear an original song written from those readings. Our primary intention behind creating these songs, as songwriters and as spiritual people, is to practice being in a deeper relationship with God by way of engaging more deeply with Scripture. Scripture speaks, and we respond with music. It's episode 9 of the podcast, and this is a special episode of the show because it's the first episode in which we get to hear the reflections and the song of another Lectio Musica songwriter. Up until now, over the last 8 episodes, you've heard 10 songs, all written by me. If you remember, there are 3 songs shared in the Poor People's Campaign episode, so 10 songs total in 8 weeks. That's a good bit of music. But here's the thing about this practice. When we're writing songs based on the Sunday readings, there is always a new song to be written. Sundays just keep coming around, you know? And preachers have to think about this. As soon as one Sunday ends, the preparation for the next one begins. So on the one hand, opening up Lectio Musica to multiple contributors helps to make this podcast a more sustainable project. But there's an even more important reason for involving other writers. Hearing the creative interpretation of Scripture from a multitude of voices is a far better way of practicing Christianity than hearing only one dominant voice, particularly when that voice is coming from a position of power or privilege. Jesus is always hanging out at the margins, so don't we want to hear the songs from folks who live on the margins? I do. And while there are several ways that I myself exist on the margins, there are lots of ways that I don't. So as the podcast goes forward, I'm going to open up the space to hear from more voices coming from more diverse social locations. Be sure to listen through to the end of the episode to hear how you might become involved in the podcast. Okay, with that, let's look ahead to the Sunday readings and hear the reflection and songwriting styles of the Lectio Musica songwriter LaJoye. Jeremiah chapter 23, verses 1 through 6. Psalm 23. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 11 through 22. Mark chapter 6, verses 30 through 34 and 53 through 56.
Hi, my name is LaJoye, and I'm so honored to be taking part in this podcast. When Matthew David first asked me to contribute a song to Lectio Musica, I was really stoked, and then almost immediately after we hung up, I found myself kind of daunted by the whole process for a few reasons, not least of which was my own wondering, what authority do I have to boil down these scripture passages to a few succinct, singable ideas? What authority do I have? And on top of that, then Matthew David sends me the passages that I'm to work with, and one of them is Psalm 23. Okay, and I thought, oh great, how am I supposed to come up with something not totally cheesy, not totally derived, something original from Psalm 23? But then I sat down with these passages, read them slowly, and then again, and I was really struck by the way that they move from describing a world in which there are far-off scattered sheep and close cared-for sheep, to describing a world in which there are no insiders or outsiders or strangers. The dividing wall of hostility has been broken down. Everyone is always home. Usually in my songwriting, I try to describe what is true about my own experience, but this practice, Lectio Musica, I think freed me to not only describe what is true in my experience or what I see in the news or what I hear in our national conversation right now, but to also describe something truer, something better, something more true about myself, more true about others, you all, my siblings, more true about the world that we live in. So I hope that you can hear that truer reality, that better world, in this song. It's called There Is Only Home, and it was recorded by my friend Cole Naylor in a little home studio that we set up. So thank you, Matthew David, for having me on this podcast, and peace to everyone listening.
There is only home. There is only home. There is only home. There is only home. There is no far, only near. No stranger there. All are dear, all are here. There is only home. 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 No one too far to be held close. No scarred, scattered sheep. All are healed, all are home. There is only home. There is only home. I am home. I am home. I am home. When I'm wandering, when I'm hungry, I am home. When I'm far beyond my reach, when I'm dirty, when I'm clean, when you're wandering, when you're hungry, when you think you're out of reach, you are clean, you are There is only home. There is only home.
Thanks, Jenny, for that amazing contribution to the podcast. I can totally imagine singing There Is Only Home in church. In fact, I may just sing that song this Saturday at dinner church at St. Stephen's in Portland. So thank you for helping me sort that out. Okay, now you, listening to this podcast, I have a question for you. After what you've heard so far on Lectio Musica, would you like to be a part of this project? Would you like to spend a few weeks contemplating a selection of scripture readings and then writing a song from those readings and then recording that song and sharing it on this podcast? If so, I want to hear from you. Send me an email at mdm, that's M as in Matthew, D as in David, M as in Morris, at lectiomusica.com. Now, don't send me a song, just send me an email that says, I'm interested. Tell me a little bit about yourself and about your songwriting practice, if you have one. And we'll go from there. I am really, really looking forward to hearing from you. Again, thank you to Jenny LaJoye for sharing your reflection and the inspired song, There Is Only Home. Links to more of Jenny's music, as well as to all of the credits for this episode, can be found in the show notes. And until next time, friends, may God's love inspire you to sing.